Johnson Labs is actually not named after the King of the North. It's named after a real person, Dr. John Snow, who's known as the father of public health, of epidemiology. He was a clinician, a physician in Victoria, London. And the thing he's most famous for is helping stop a cholera outbreak in London in 1854. And the interesting thing was how he did it. He actually, together with others, he collected data and he built a map of all the people who died. It's called the ghost map because everyone knew it was a ghost. And with it, found out that the most probable cause of the epidemic was one water well that was probably poisoned. And the well was blocked and the epidemic kind of calmed down. And that was really one of the first examples of actually using data to improve public good, which is really what the study of public health is all about. And with John Snow Labs, our goal is to enable many, many more John Snows to exist and succeed in the 21st century and help them with their own data issues. So hence the company. Having said that, it came across nicely that, the King of the North used the same name, and then, it helped the beginning, and I think people still recognize the name for that. So today, what I like to talk to you about in the next half hour is my goal is to help you build your own natural language processing projects in kind of real production systems and do it all with free software. So I'm going to tell you about some of the new open source and free software that we built and are given to you for free. Let's begin. So we're going to have a quick introduction and then talk about three things. We're going to talk about the NLU Library for Python, the Annotation Lab, which is a labeling and data annotation tool, and then the NLP Server. If you have any questions, please save them to the end. So what I like to do is have this this presentation. Afterwards, we have the separate room, and I'll be there for any questions you may have. So natural language processing is growing into really a fundamental enterprise technology and something that is very, very widely deployed. And we have, other than kind of anecdotal evidence, we have several industry-wide data points to show that. One of them is from the NLP Industry Server 2021 that was published just a few weeks ago by Gradient Flow that showed that in 2021 compared to 2020, 60% of technical leaders stated that the NLP budget was growing, and a third of them said that it was growing by 30% or more. And really what we are seeing is, in general, AI and cybersecurity as basically the only areas where people are still investing in during the COVID pandemic. So it was growth in 2020, more growth in 2021. And here you can see very, very significant investments, which really means that in industry, in enterprises, the new research advances we are seeing in deep learning, transfer learning are actually now transforming into real projects within real companies that are aimed to go to production. Another thing that caught me by surprise was another report from 6 months ago that focused on healthcare AI and asked technical leaders, specifically within healthcare, what are the kind of the key technologies that they use to kind of to manage data. And there were 4 technologies that more than half of technical leaders named, which was data integration, NLP, business intelligence, and data warehouse. And the interesting thing is that other than NLP, the 3 other technologies here have been on this list for 3 decades, and they'll probably be on it for another 3 decades. And NLP is a newcomer, right? So 6, 7 years ago, there was no way that NLP would, it was a niche thing that would not have been mentioned. But really, this is just another data point that shows just how prevalent the technology is being used right now in production enterprise settings. So one of the things that I and the team at Johnson Lab think about every day is how can we best help? How can we, at the open source community, the industry, take advantage of this new technology, this new opportunity, as really be able to succeed and succeed faster? And there are many different types of answers, but there's one answer that pretty much everyone agrees on that's going to help everyone, which is giving you, so giving all of you, the community, the industry, more free software, because that's usually the easiest way to get people to just take something, run with it, build cool things, and help all of us make progress. And for us, our focus has always been starting with enterprise grade security, scalability, robustness, So what I'm going to show you here are tools that are definitely kind of proven in that respect. All of the tools and libraries that we'll talk about today are kind of expand the Spark NLP ecosystem. Spark NLP by itself has been growing fantastically over the last year and a half. It recently crossed 10 million downloads, and that's just on PyPy alone, not counting Maven, the entire Java, Scala, Spark ecosystems. As of a month ago, it has 31% of NLP practitioners, not just in healthcare in general, use Spark NLP. And so just PyPy, it's over 24 times growth since January 2020. So there's definitely been a very significant boom in 2020 and 2021 in how the library is adopted, used, and deployed, which is of course something we are very thankful for, and we definitely take the responsibility. We've just celebrated 4 years of releasing software every 2 weeks, and our promise to you and the whole community is that we will keep you at the state of the art. So we'll keep looking at everything new that comes out of research, the things that actually generalize, actually reproduce. Our commitment is to give you the production-grade, scalable, and reliable version of them for you. So let's begin. The first library that I want to share to you is the NLP library for Python, which you get by just running pip install NLU. All right, so it really is just the NLU library of Python. Our goal with it was to provide all of the power behind Spark NLP, but in a much simpler way, right? So people who don't care about TensorFlow or PyTorch deep learning, don't care about Spark or scaling or anything, just want like super simple ways to use what's already there. So one design goal was to get to a point where everything or almost everything you can do with one line of code, and you'll see some examples of that. Another big design requirement, I would say, was to integrate very nicely with the rest of the Python ecosystem. So as you can see, you can just send an entire pandas data frame. You get pandas data frame out. You can use regular Python screens, arrays, dictionaries in a very intuitive way. It's very easy to integrate with the common Python data processing libraries, visualization libraries, send data around. So really make this kind of a super easy to use Python. Good Python citizen, and of course completely open source. So the NLU library is Apache 2.0 license, so it's open source and it's free to use, including for commercial purposes with no limitations. So the NLU library starts with two very simple methods that you need to know, which are load and predict. And in this example shows you how in one line of code you can do spell checking and spell correction. So NLU.load spell. Spell is the what you call actually the spell or the kind of the keyword to load the English spell checker pipeline. So that would fetch it from the web if it's not already cached locally. If it's cached locally, it would load it into memory. It would load embeddings, whatever it needs. Set up the pipeline in memory. If you have GPUs, multi-threading, it would deal with all of that, so that the model is ready to go. And then .predict. I like peanut butter and jelly. Means that we'll return a pandas data frame that looks like this. So you'd have a row for each token. And you can see the words like, peanut, butter, and jelly, all 4 words were misspelled. And the checked column would give you, in this case, the corrected version for both. So that's all you need to do kind of autocorrect in Python nowadays. Pip install NLU and this one line, and you're good to go. All the magic happens behind the scene. So that's one model. There are more than 4,000 models that are available to you for a really different kind of NLP tasks, from simple things like sentence splitting to more advanced things like, as you'll see, translation, question answering. So let's look at a few more examples. This is sentiment analysis. So NLU.load sentiment, .predict, I hate this guy, Sammy. Here, you don't get a row per token, you get a row per sentence. So library tries to guess what's the most kind of most relevant pandas data frame to return. If you don't like it, you can ask specifically for a different level of granularity. But here you can see that the sentiment is negative. There's a confidence interval that comes with it, and you also get other things that are computed, like in this case, like the tokens. And this library is multilingual. All of the Spark NLP models are available to you here. So you have access to models in more than 200 languages, as well as some multilingual models and embeddings and transformers that are part of the library. Another thing that you see here is you don't have to send a string to predict. So NLU.load lang. So lang is the kind of the default recommended language detector. .predict. In this case, we send a Python array with 2 strings. In general, what you can send a string, or you can send an array. You can also send just a pandas data frame. You can also send a Spark data frame, and then you'll get back a Spark data frame. So if it does need a scale distributed, it will use that. You can also send an array data frame or a modding data frame, so we can kind of correctly optimize and handle things like multi-threaded environment, or other kind of more scalable pandas implementations in a very transparent and very native way, right? You just use the library you want, send it into predict, you get the same result, and under the hood it does the correct optimization. It does not do conversions. And here you can see we do language detection. We have one sentence in English, another in French. You get the language and you get the confidence interval for each. Sometimes you don't want, you don't want the library to do a task. You just want it to calculate lots of embeddings, right? I just want either word embeddings or sentence embeddings or whatever may be the case. So you can do that, and you can do a whole bunch of them. In general, you can do a whole bunch of things in one line. So you do NLU.load, and then you do BERT space Elmo space Albert space XLNet space USE universal sentence embedding space glove, and then don't predict on a row. It would load all of these embeddings into memory. It would calculate all of them. So in this case, just word embeddings. I think except the sentence embedding, you just get one vector for the sentence, and return all of that to you in one pandas data frame. So other than the fact that this may take a lot of memory simply because those models can be big, this is really kind of by far the simplest way to go and use and calculate those embeddings, either on one string or on a large body of text. Another very popular use case, kind of NLP task and set of models, is named entity recognition. So looking within text and recognizing specific types of entities. So the NER.load, NLU.load NER loads the kind of the default English named entity recognizer, which is based on onto-nodes. There are, I think, 17 entities it can recognize out of the box. But really, I think there are several dozen pre-trained NER models that come, and that's in English only. In this case, you can see we read a sentence and we extract entities like Angela Merkel as a person, Donald Trump as a person, Germany as a location, and American as a miscellaneous, because it's an adjective in this case. If you don't have a pre-trained NER model, another thing you can do is unsupervised keyword extraction, right? Which basically, in this case, we use Yake. There's also now a newer Yake-like algorithm that is more accurate. But to keep things simple, basically what this does is, take a sentence, or of course, can be a whole set of sentences, and what you're asking it is kind of, in an unsupervised way, give me kind of really the main keywords or the main phrases from the text. So in this case, it would read this sentence here on the screen and tell you that NLU, NLP, and Python library are the 3 key concepts or phrases that it was able to extract together with the original sentence and the confidence score. So that's another one-liner. You also have other than name and recognition, keyword extraction. You also have a fairly large set of text classifiers, from sarcasm classifier, spam classifier, we also saw language classifier. And there's also several multi-class classifiers. For example, one very popular one is for identifying toxic content. And it is multi-class because there's more than one way that a sentence can be toxic. If you look at the example here, you're so stupid. As you can see, it returns 2 classes. This is a toxic sentence and an insult. These specific classifiers can also specifically look at sexism, look at identity attacks, and there are 2 or 3 other kind of classes that it can identify together with confidence. So that's one pre-trained model. Another thing this example shows you is how you can use models in different languages. So you can see you do NLU.load en.classify.text. En means English. If you put PT, it would be Portuguese. If you put RU, it would be Russian. And if you put XX, it means that you want the multilingual model. What we don't show here is there's also the ability, also in one line of text, to train your own models. So there's also a fit method that does that. I'm just not showing the examples here for time, but you can look at it online. Another interesting thing you can do with NLU is summarize text. And also it uses the underlying kind of Spark NLP models. So NLU.load summarize, you have the data, which is called predict on the data. So really it's the same thing. We just split the data into several lines because it's longer. That's why we want to summarize it. And you get the pandas data frame with the text and the predicted summary. There is also an ability to configure how you want it. So basically how aggressively you want to summarize. So those properties are also the document on the website. We have, I think, somewhere between 50 and 100 different Python notebooks that show examples, as well as the reference documentation. One other interesting thing to show is Spark NLP and hence NLU also come with some interesting pre-trained language models. And some of them include their own knowledge bases, right, which is how they do things like closed book question answering. So for example, NLU.load, EN.T5 predict who is the president of Nigeria, and you get Buhari, you get the correct response. What is the most spoken language in India? You get the correct response, right? Even though actually the question is not grammatically correct, you still get the correct response, and same on with other answers. So you have there are quite a few, there are hundreds of translation models, embeddings and transformers, name entity recognizer, text classifiers, different types of summarization, Q&A models, basically spell checker, grammar checking, all of those tasks are there. And other than this actually doing that, NLU does includes some other interesting things. One thing is visualizations. So for example, if instead of NLU.load.predict, you do NLU.load.viz for visualize, for name entity recognition tasks and models, you get this kind of visualization that you see on the screen, right? So you get Donald Trump from America and Arjun from Germany, and you see it actually visualized, and you see it in your notebook. Or of course, you can use it in a web application if that's what you need. There are quite a few other types of visualizations. This example shows part of speech tagging and dependency parser. So NLU.load dep.type. So this is typed dependency parsing. And visualize Billy went to the mall. And you get this visualization right on your notebook or on your screen that shows that Billy is a noun phrase, right? Went is a verb, D is a determinant, and so on. And you also see the types and kind of the links between basically between the parse tree. In addition to those visualizations, which are really super great if you want to do just different type of debugging or just see how well the model works, NLU also comes with 9 different complete Streamlit apps. So if you come and say, okay, this NER thing is nice, but can I just have a small web app where I can actually type things and see what it does? Or same thing for text classification, for dependency parser, or as you can see in the example here, for clustering and doing kind of 3D interactive exploration of embeddings. And there are applications here to do that for word embeddings, for sentence embeddings, which is great for kind of whether for debugging or just understanding how different texts work. There is a Streamlit app that does that. It takes exactly 1 line once you install the library to actually run the Streamlit library, with some text, but then you have this interactive web app, and you can do it yourself. Here are here's the current cheat sheet, and same thing. It's a 1-liner. For example, if you want the one for sentiment analysis, NLU.load sentiment.viz_streamlit classes on the data that you have, and that's it. Just it loads the interactive application with the data, with the models. It's run, and you can play with it, change it, see how it goes. So overall, what you have here is a completely free, open source, super easy way to use thousands of models out of the box that are production grade, scalable, heavily used in industry. If you want to get started with this, it's a 1-line installation, and this is for Colab, and you have other other examples in case if that's what you need. There's full documentation. There's the link here, and there's also community support. So if you go to sparknlp.slack.com, there's my team is there every day. There are hundreds of other people that are there on a regular basis, and you can ask anything from general questions to copy and pasting your exception stack trace, and usually someone will be there and be able to help you. So that's the NLU library. The next thing that we found useful and found that something that's missing in the industry is a really strong enterprise-grade good annotation tool. And we're happy to say that Johnson Lab's Annotation Lab is now free. By free, we mean free. So it's unlimited everything. You get the software, you install it yourself. Unlimited users, documents, projects, tasks, models, unlimited everything, no upsell. It's also a share nothing model. So as you know, a lot of the work Johnson Lab does is in the healthcare space. Most of our customers are in high compliance, regulated environment. They cannot, it does not work for them if we would have a SaaS model, they have to send anything to us. And in general, if someone tells you that they give you such a tool for free, but you have to share with them all of your annotations or all of your documents, then that is not free at all. So here, this is a share nothing model. You get the software, you install it. It does not call home. It can work in an isolated environment. So it's a completely free tool. Other than that, it's a capable tool, and we've been using it for 2 years in production now in dozens of projects. It's very stable and robust in that respect. There are other annotation tools, and really, the reason we did this, I talked to maybe 20 teams in the industry over the first, last couple of years who build their own annotation tools, either because the other open source tools were not strong enough, because the companies behind them want to upsell you to tools that have security, have project management, have Inter-Annotator Agreements, or better analytics, or active learning, and we wanted to give a free tool that gives you all of that out of the box. Or because that were a good tool, but they were really as a service, and then either the pricing became as expensive as you scaled because it was per user, per document, or you actually had to share kind of documents and data, which was problematic in some industries. So the goal was to provide something that is really free, that is really enterprise grade, and definitely something that's robust and kind of being used and you can rely. So here's the annotation tool. I'm going to share some screenshots and kind of highlight some of the interesting features. So the very first thing you need from a data annotation tool is really just productivity. You want the annotator who spends like hours and hours a day to be one hand on keyboard, one hand on mouse, in the zone, keyboard shortcuts, one-click edits, making sure wherever I'm doing, marking entities, relationships, assertions, normalized values, sequence to sequence, classification. I can do it all very easy within one screen. You want versioning and audit. So I do something as myself. When I annotate, I submit. Basically, I commit a version. If someone else does something, they have their own version. There's a compare version tools. There's a full audit trail, which is very important if you're working, for example, in healthcare or pharma. There's version control. You can see who did what. And they also shared guidelines. So if you have specific annotation, we say, okay, when we look at someone's height, for example, it says 186, cm. Is the cm part of the, should it be annotated, or is it separate? What happens if I have a different unit? What happens if I have two spaces? And you want to be very, very specific about those guidelines within a team. So you can share and edit guidelines. Other than that, there's a whole lot of features around project management and teamwork. So first of all, you can define different projects. People can belong to different projects. Then they can only see what they're supposed to see within the projects and within the roles. Within projects, each task has a state diagram. So it starts, it can be pre-annotated. There's someone, you can assign and change the people who are assigned to do it. Once someone submits a job, you can either say, okay, it's done, or you can say, no, it needs to go to a reviewer. A reviewer can send back work if there are errors to correct it with comments. There's also, in addition to versioning, there's also a commenting feature. And of course, we manage the audit trail of all of that state diagram. You can do tagging, right? So for example, you can have tags on what's in your training set, what's in your validation set, who does what. And there's also the search and features here to remove duplicates. The tool supports different kinds of projects, so not only textual ones, also you can annotate images, so bounding boxes, image classification, so on. You can annotate audio, you can annotate video, you can audit HTML, you can combine some of them together to a project where you need to annotate multiple things at the same time. So all of that is there. The other thing, project, everything is kind of user-based and role-based. So when you define a project, as you can see here, you can assign people to the project and to specific roles. So you can say you're an annotator, you're a reviewer, you're only a viewer, and someone else only views or can kind of view dashboards, so that really high compliance projects can happen. The big thing and really the huge kind of 10x productivity boost with annotation tools comes with the fact that you don't actually upload documents and start annotating one by one, but you start with some pre-trained models, you pre-annotate data, okay, so that you start with a prediction of what it should be. The human annotator annotates by correcting that prediction, so only the things that are wrong or have been caught need to be fixed, and that should happen quickly in terms of the UI. And then in the background, new models get trained, and basically you have an active learning loop. And without any data scientist in the loop, you can build and improve the model as you go. So you have the ability here to pre-annotate, so you can load all the models and entities that are already recognized. And right now we support document classification, entity recognition, relation extraction, and assertion status detection to do that. And you can pick which fields would be pre-annotated by what. You can filter which tasks should be annotated. So only tasks in these stages would be pre-annotated. You can choose model, choose embeddings, and the whole thing runs in a separate container. So this runs on Kubernetes. So when you run a pre-annotation, it will be a heavy job. It runs in a separate container, so it does not interrupt other people who are interactively annotating in the user interface. Once you have some annotations, either pre-annotations or you've done it yourself or a combination, the tool supports automated model training and active learning. So you can either click train now and say, okay, let's go and train, or you can just move active learning so that it's completely automated. As soon as there are enough new examples, a new model gets trained in the backend. You can watch real-time logs. The training also happens in an asynchronous container, right? So just kind of it gets spawned, it gets into a queue, and the model retrains in the background without interrupting anyone. And if you push the little settings buttons, you can see that you can also, if you want to, if you don't want auto NLP, you can choose your own embeddings, choose your own hyperparameters, and filter really which completions should be used for training.
David, 1 minute warning.
Sure, thank you. So we'll complete this section. And the NLP server will have to come and ask and wait. So the next thing you want all those models to go somewhere. So there's a local models hub, which connects all the models that were downloaded from the internet, from the online model hub, all the models you've trained here, and models that you just uploaded manually. So especially if you're in an offline, hyper secure environment, you can manage all the models that are available for pre-annotation, for model training here, and that's really part of the tool. And the last thing is there's more than 20 different guides for analytics. So you can track your project, right? So, we need to get 5,000 documents done. How close are we to being done? You can track productivity, which people are doing better, are more productive, more accurate than others. And you can look at the bias in the data set, right? So as you annotate, you can say, oh, look, we have way too many women, way too many kids, way too many people with diabetes here, which you can only see when you annotate, right? Because that's why you're annotating. You can identify that bias really early on, right? And fix it by adding or removing certain documents as part of the process. So we have that, as well as Inter-Annotator Agreement, which is critical. So either when two people disagree or when a person and a model disagrees, you can see this visually. And when you really want the two people to talk and see, okay, where are we, what do we need to agree on? You can drill down to individual examples and text, get to agreement, and update the shared guidelines so that this happens. So if you'd like to get started with the Annotation Lab, same thing, one-line installation. There's online documentation, including some videos on how to get started, and there's community support. So we'll stop at this point. We'll not talk about the NLP server given the time. What I would say though is, look, we build the tools for you, for the community. We see really already great uptake of the Annotation Lab, right? The new tools that's there. Please put them to good use, and please send any feedback. Send us feedback. I mean, we're looking to learn as well. So that we can do a better job for you and know what to build for you next. Thank you.